안녕하십니까. 저는 현재 라이드시의 의원인 송강호라고 하고요. 이번에 연방선거에 나오는 제롬 락사 의원을 제가 적극적으로 지지하기에 오늘 이 폴링 비지니스맨 어소시에이션에서 주최하는 행사에 나왔고요. 저희 항상 제롬 같은 경우는 정말 항상 성실하게 오랫동안 저희 커뮤니티를 봉사해 왔기 때문에 이번에 당선은 확실하다고 저는 개인적으로 믿고 있으니까 많은 분들 항상 응원해 주십시오. 감사합니다.
네, 정말 중요한 선거가 다가왔습니다. 여러분들 이번 팬데믹을 이렇게 지혜롭게 잘 헤쳐나간 자유당을 이번에 꼭 찍어주시기 바랍니다. 자유당 화이팅!
나눠져 있고 일부는 선거 후보자들과 구의 정치분들의 발표와 Q&A로 진행합니다. 질문이 계신 분들은 QR코드 링크를 이용해서 텍스트를 보내주시기 바랍니다. 질문은 영어 또는 한국어로 모두 쓰실 수 있습니다. QR코드는 지금 앞에 오버헤드에 지금 나와 있고요. 또 쉿에 보시면 QR코드가 있으니까 그 QR코드를 이용해서 텍스트 보내주시면 좋겠습니다. 일부는 영어로 대부분 진행되고요. 헤드셋으로 한국어 서비스를 해드립니다. 혹시 통역 서비스가 필요하신 분들은 뒤에 계시는 우리 발런티어 분들께 헤드셋을 신청하셔서 이용해 주시기 바랍니다. 2부엔 양당 한국계 시의원분들과 한국어로 호주 정치에 대해서 말씀을 나누겠습니다. 오늘 행사가 끝난 뒤에는 추첨하여 선물을 나누어 드리니 끝까지 자리 같이 해주시고요. 유익한 시간이 되시기 바랍니다. Okay, thank you everyone here for participating in this meaningful event. Do you know Australian politics on the very busy Friday night? Hello everyone, my name is Julianne, Vice President of 폴링 비지니스맨 Association. I'm one of your MCs for tonight's event. We will start the events by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land. We acknowledge the Wallamerigo people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodian of the country we are meeting today. We pay our respect to elders past, present, emerging, and we also extend that our respect to the all First Nation people present today. The 2022 Australian federal election is fast approaching on the 21st of May. 폴링 비지니스맨 Association has organized this event to help Korean Australians decide who to vote with more informative thought.
안녕하십니까. 시드니에서 경제활동을 하며 우리의 성장과 타의 모범이 되기를 원하는 사업가들로 지난 2004년 구성된 저희 폴링 비지니스맨 어소시에이션의 회장 패트릭 차영입니다. 반갑습니다. 늦은 시간에도 불구하고 호주 양대 정당 소속 현직 의원 및 후보 및 현역 정치인 10명이 처음으로 우리 코리안 커뮤니티 앞에서 공약을 직접 저희들에게 전달하게 되고 특히 우리 관심사에 관해서 질의응답할 수 있는 폴링맨이 마련한 오늘 호주 정치에 가는 길 호주도 행사에 참여해주신 코리안 오스트레일리안 보터 여러분 대단히 감사합니다. Also, I'd like to extend my deepest thanks to the speakers from the Liberal and the Labour Party who have taken their time out of their busy schedule to come to this event tonight. The Honorable Victor Dominello is 코비드 때문에 오늘 참석 못하셨고요. 비디오로 영상을 보내주시고 있습니다. With the Honorable Scott Farlow MLC, Mr. Simon Kennedy, Dr. Fiona Martin MP, and the Councillor Daniel Han-Jong-tae from Liberal Party, and also the Senator Tim Ayres, Councillor Jerome Rakse, the Miss Sally Sito, and the Councillor Bernard Purcell, and the Councillor Charles Songgang-won-님 from Labour Party. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you. 한국 내 선거권이 없는데도 한국 정치에 더 많은 관심을 갖고 정작 호주 선거에는 벌금이 내기 싫어 마지못해 투표했던 경험은 아마 저만의 기억이 아닐 것입니다. 하지만 우리는 유구하고 눈부신 한국 역사 문화를 뒤로하고 내 자신이 직접 선택한 제2의 조국 호주에서 사회적 약자나 정치적으로 무시된 이론으로 살아서는 안 될 것입니다. 그 첫걸음으로 건강한 호주 시민으로서 우리의 권리와 의무를 소중히 여기며 지역사회 발전에 노력하는 것, 그 이외에도 호주 정치에 보다 많은 관심을 가지고 우리의 삶을 임해주셨으면 하는 부탁입니다. 이런 이유로 저희 콜링맨에서 이제껏 어떤 단체도 시도하지 않았던 이 자리를 호주 교민이 가장 많이 거주하시며 동시에 노동당과 자유당에서 차기 집권을 위해 전략적으로 매우 중요한 리드와 밴들롱 선거구를 중심으로 마련했습니다. 오늘 이 행사에 참여해 주신 여러분은 정치인의 말을 직접 들어보는 이 기회를 통해 이분들 가운데 우리들의 귀에, 우리의 말에 귀를 기울여주고 우리를 기억해주고 우리를 대신해서 캠발에서 정치를 해줄 정치인과 소속 정당을 우리가 기억하고 한 표를 던져주시리라 믿어마지 않습니다. 오늘 이 행사가 또 영 코리안 오스트레일리안에게는 호주 정치 인문에 관심을 갖는 계기가 되었으면 합니다. 오늘 이 행사를 성공적으로 마치기 위해 오랫동안 애써주신 다니엘 한정태 의원님과 찰스 송광호 의원님 및 양당 관계자 여러분, 콜링맨 보드 멤버 여러분, 그리고 콜링맨 멤버 여러분, 자원봉사자 여러분, 그리고 재외동포재단 여러분, 그리고 홍보를 도와주신 모든 교민 언론 매체께 감사드립니다. 모쪼록 오늘 행사가 말씀을 전하는 정치인들에게는 소속 정당과 자신을 올바로 알리는 기회가 되고 여러분에게는 호주 정치를 조금 더 이해할 수 있는 시간으로 기억되기를 바랍니다. 부디 마치는 시간까지 경청해 주시고 그리고 QR코드를 통해서 링크를 통해서 저희들에게 또 질문을 던져주시면 이 일부 마지막 순서에 성심껏 아마 정치인분들께서 답변해 주시라 믿습니다. 감사합니다.
Yes, I'm strongly agree that we ought not live or to be treated as just weak and political ignorant immigrants. So we need to make an effort. Next, the tenor Ji Hwan Son will sing a song about reminiscing about the beautiful mountain in Korea, Gyeong Gyeongsan, and I still call Australia home. Please make a big clap.
I still call Australia home. businesses into big global tech giants. When we think about Apple, when we think about Tesla, we think about Samsung, we think about Hyundai. In our backyard here in Macquarie Park, we have a number of Korean companies that are making an enormous contribution. And right now is the time that we must have a strong government that will protect our prosperity. And that's why if you vote and you provide your support, your strength to Dr. Martin and to Simon Kennedy, then you will get a government that will continue to support families, continue to support small businesses, continue to support a strong economy in a challenging world. So please, I ask you, I'd be grateful for your support of them. 감사합니다, 축하합니다 for tonight's event. I hopefully see you soon.
어르신들이 많이 오셔가지고 한국말로 스피치를 하고 싶기도 한데 일단 영어로 하기로 해서 또 영어로 해보겠습니다. 좀 잘 들어주십시오. Hello, I'm Daniel Han. Thank you, Mr. Cha, for inviting us and also Collingman for organising. And I wish to acknowledge distinguished guests, Member for Reid, Dr. Fiona Martin, former Mayor of Strathfield, the Honourable Scott Farlow, and former member for Epping is, sorry, not here at the moment, Senator Tim Ayres, Sally Sito and Jerome, and finally Simon Kennedy, and of course my fellow councillor Charles Song. Now, thank you, and hang on. Did I miss anyone? Oh, of course. The 불곰. 한국말로 불곰으로 별명을 지었는데요. The 불곰, Councillor Purcell as well.
Thank you, Dave.
Always a pleasure. Now, thank you everyone for turning up tonight to show interest for this upcoming election. I wish to introduce you to this amazing candidate, Simon Kennedy. Now, Simon's story is incredibly inspiring and encouraging for me personally. As a public school teacher who's expecting a baby in 8 weeks, my wife is here, very heavily pregnant. Simon was a local boy raised by school teacher parents, and he was a school captain of Epping Boys, studied law and commerce at UNSW, graduated with distinction and went on to work for the Mackenzie and Company. Now, I wanted to congratulate and emphasize on Simon's achievements with Mackenzie and Company. As a lot of you would know, Mackenzie is a global consulting firm that advises some of the world's biggest companies and governments to solve some of the toughest challenges around the globe. And therefore, Mackenzie and Company attracts some of the brightest minds of the world, making them one of the most competitive companies to be employed at. Now, Simon took his opportunities when he got into Mackenzie and Company and spent the last 7 years advising world leaders and CEOs across the United States, the Caribbean, and Australia on designing economic, infrastructure, and pro-business policies. And at the age of 34, Simon has been elected as a partner at Mackenzie's. He basically reached the top of his game, top of his profession. And now he's standing here ready to serve the community of Benelong. Now, my fellow community of Benelong, we have an important choice to make in 3 weeks' time. You can vote for this excellent candidate and the government who managed the pandemic better than any other places around the world, which is now set and ready to go for a fast and effective economic recovery during these turbulent times. Or you can vote for a government whose leader doesn't understand the unemployment rate, or let alone the cash rate that affects every Australian. Now, I believe in great candidates make great government, and Benelong, the choice is yours. Thank you for coming. 감사합니다.
Okay, now is Mr. Simon Kennedy is a Liberal candidate for Benelong.
안녕하세요. It's great to be here in a room, in such a diverse, multicultural room, in an area I grew up in and with familiar faces. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Fiona Martin, Member of Reid, Senator Tim Ayres, Honourable Scott Farlow, the many councillors we have here tonight, and the many leaders of the Korean community. Leaders of the community, small business owners, and important Korean Australians. And firstly, thank you to President Cha for hosting tonight. Very thankful for that. Thank you very much, sir. As many of you know, I grew up here in Benelong, raised with local values. As Daniel said, I spent my career working all around the world, in Asia, the US, Australia, working for communities, solving their toughest problems. Now, I want to take those values and those skills and go to work for you and for Benelong and for Australia. I'm very proud of my local roots. I was born only a few kilometres from here tonight. I was raised locally and was captain of Epping Boys High School. This was the same school my mother and my father taught at for 20 and 30 years. 60% of that school were people from diverse backgrounds, and many Korean Australians, who I played basketball with all the time. My only complaint was they would always beat me, and they were better at karaoke than me. But this upbringing here taught me that Korean Australians and the Liberal Party share three core values. One, that a strong entrepreneurial economy matters. Two, hard work matters. And three, ingenuity is very, very important to the economy. Firstly, on a strong entrepreneurial economy, I have an enormous amount of respect for Korea and the people of Korea. Following the war, Korea transformed its entire economy in a single generation. The miracle of the Han River. Korea came from an agricultural economy to a technology powerhouse of the world that challenges the US as the most entrepreneurial technology company in the world. The Liberal government has similar values. Over the last 3 years, the Liberal government has performed similarly to the Korean government in managing COVID. We have saved 40,000 lives from COVID. My wife, as an infectious disease doctor, serving on the front line to help Australia get there and get to a 95% vaccination rate. We have delivered a strong economy and stronger future. We have had the fastest economic recovery of all the G7 nations. We now have 400,000 more jobs in Australia than any time ever in our history, and unemployment at a 48-year low. But storm clouds are on the horizon. Inflation is rising, and so is the cost of living. And with those many challenges ahead, I still believe Australia's best days lie ahead of us if we make the right choice in 21 days. This is the most important choice of my lifetime for the Australian people and for Korean Australians. So much is at stake. And you have a choice between a Liberal government with a plan for 1.3 million new jobs. To support small business, we are providing $500 million in tax rebates for small businesses to digitise. And I've met many small businesses, whether it's Vision Real Estate or another real estate company in Eastwood. We are here to support you. We've provided tax cuts every year since 2017. Corporate tax rate is now down from 30 to 25%, and I will be fighting for more for you. Now is not the time to risk a Labor opposition with no plan for the economy, no policy platform. Secondly, I spoke about hard work. Korea is the hallmark of hard work, and during the economic transformation, Koreans worked more hours than any other industrial economy. The Liberal Party is the party of hard work. That is the story of my life, coming from Epping Boys High to a partner at McKinsey, taking your opportunities. I understand, and the Liberal Party understands, you don't want handouts, you want a hand up to improve your lives, improve your families, and improve your business. And in 2 years, our tax reform policy will see that 95% of Australians pay no more than 30 cents in the dollar tax, the lowest in our history. And the Labor Party is yet to rule out any new taxes. Finally, ingenuity. That was why Korea was so successful in transforming your country and your nation in one generation. Bennelong and Australia has the opportunity to do this. Bennelong and Macquarie Park is the centre of innovation. Bennelong is the #1 electorate in the entire Australia for technology jobs. 18,000 residents in Bennelong work in technology. We want Bennelong to be the Silicon Valley of Australia. What Korea is to Asia, we want Bennelong to be to Australia. The foundations of the high-tech economy in Bennelong are strong. We have Hyundai, Samsung in Macquarie Park. I am personally a tech investor, and I understand what it requires to get these businesses to grow, and that is what I will do for you and for each of your businesses. I want to work with the people in this room, the Australian-Korean community, to strengthen the economic ties, not just between Korea and Australia, but between Korea and Bennelong, between Korea and Macquarie Park. I want to work with you to make the Australian Free Trade Agreement stronger, exploit it, and encourage those ties. So now is not the time to risk this with a Labor of government, with no plan and no future. So when you come to the election on May 21, I encourage you to remember what is at stake. The most important election coming out of a COVID pandemic with the economy with storm clouds ahead. Vote Kennedy #1. I'm a local man who will work with you to deliver a strong economy and stronger future. Kamsahamnida.
Exciting and challenging areas that's coming up. An Australian in Ryde. He has been a proud resident of the city of Ryde for 20 years. He strongly believes in inclusion and representation for the older community. He also seeks to champion our cultural diversity.
안녕하세요. I'd like to welcome everybody here. It's a fantastic turnout, and congratulations to the Korean community for being so interested in this very important election. So welcome everybody, and welcome candidates on both sides, particularly Labor because they're so great, and all our VIPs. So thank you very much. I'm calling them. Patrick, thank you very much. It's great to be here. My name is Councillor Bernard Purcell. I've been involved with the Korean community since 2004 and as a councillor since 2017. I worked with Jerome on the City of Ryde Council since 2017, and I've known him longer as a member of the Labor Party and as a good friend. He constantly amazes me with his vibrancy, his dedication and his political acumen. He works harder than any other politician I know. Sorry, Tim. Now, where I'd like to talk about myself tonight, because that's my favourite topic, I'm actually here to talk about Jerome. And I also want you to know that, in particular, for all the great things about Jerome, he's a businessman. He's running a business with his father and has done for many years. He's done this through his high school studies, through his university degree, and more recently, his very busy political life. But he hasn't stepped away from business, so he knows what the pressures of business are. And that's an important aspect of Jerome and what he offers. He runs a business. He knows what to do day to day, and he knows what it's like to run that business, whether it's small, whether it's medium, whether it's large, whether it's entrepreneurial. whether it's goods and services, whether it's products, it doesn't matter. They're all the same stresses that we've gone through, particularly over the last few years. So how important is that? Having Jerome as our federal representative would be a huge benefit for all businesses in Bennelong. We spoke about Bennelong as a powerhouse. It's actually Macquarie Park, one of the most amazing districts in New South Wales and indeed Australia. It's huge, it's phenomenal, and it happens to be in my ward, so I love it. For Young's been running a business on the ground. He knows about financial pressures, dealing with clients, dealing with staffing issues, stock management, imports, exports and unforeseen events as we've had over the last few years. The list is endless, and you need that experience to help the businesses of Bennelong. It's a day-to-day. Businesses don't just go away. They don't just run themselves. They have to be worked on, and they need assistance at all levels of government, and what better level of government than federal to help your businesses. As a federal member, Jerome would be able to represent you and your concerns personally to the people that make decisions that affect businesses greatly, like fiscal management, taxation, targeted business support, which we've discussed, employment strategies, working conditions, very important to the Labor Party because we're the fair alternative to the worker, access to global markets and crisis support when needed. So for all the great things about Jerome brings to his candidature, his practical knowledge of running a business like yours is invaluable. I know how good a candidate Jerome is because I know him so well. You've seen him working for 9 years in the City of Ryde, so those of you who've been lucky enough would know what he's done for the City of Ryde. I cannot think of a more fitting federal representative than Jerome Laxale for Bennelong, and I wish him all the very, very best on May the 21, and I hope you will vote for the Labor Party because I believe it's time for change, and I believe we are the change you're looking for. Kamsahamnida.
Now, Mr. Jerome.
안녕하세요. I've got to say, I've never quite been to an event like this. What a fantastic turnout from a community that is so engaged with this election. It's wonderful to see so many locals and many familiar faces. It's lovely to meet so many new people, not only from Bennelong but from Reed as well. And it's lovely to be here with so many distinguished guests. I'd just like to start by really paying tribute to two of my colleagues on council. One thing that we hear a lot about Bennelong is how diverse it is. And I had the pleasure in 2017 to work with a member of the Korean Australian community and get a Korean Australian on council. And that was a great achievement for local Australians. In 2021, not only were we able to do that again and get Councillor Charles Song elected as a member of the Labor Party to Ryde Council, but we also had Councillor Daniel Hahn elected to the City of Ryde Council. And I think that's just wonderful for this area. Give them a round of applause. Diversity and representation matters. And I know how our local Korean business community, you know, it was funny, in the first few years when I was elected to council, I used to get a lot of emails from Korean Australians. But then when Councillor Song and Councillor Han got elected, I get no more emails, right? And I think you still like me, but what you've got in these two gentlemen are people who understand you and people who represent you. And it's just so wonderful that on the City of Ryde we've got those two elected. Enough about them. I've been living here in Bennelong for the last 15 years. I grew up in Western Sydney and both my parents came from overseas. My first language was French, and trust me, I had a very quick scramble to get rid of my French nationality so that I could stand for federal parliament. We do not want a by-election in Bennelong. Let the winner be the winner. what that taught me, and it's a very similar story that I'm sure you all have, is my parents left their home to come to Australia because they love this country and they love the promise it can give us. When I come to citizenship ceremonies, I hear these same stories where my father in particular left his home, and they were well off back in Mauritius. They came to Australia, moved to Balmain before it was really fancy, and they worked really hard as a family. They were able to then send me to university. They were able to educate me so that I could grow our small business, so that I could have private sector experience, get on as a director of a board, a workers' compensation board, be treasurer of local government New South Wales, be mayor of the city of Ryde for 5 years, all because of the sacrifices they made and their investments in my future. And that story is so common amongst our diverse community. You've left your homeland, many of you, to come here because you see Australia as a land of hope and opportunity. And that's something that I hope to be able to do as an elected official, if elected as the federal member for Bennelong. A lot of you know me, having worked so closely with you in my role, not only as a councillor, but as mayor of the city of Ryde. I think the first really close interaction I had with the local small business community in Eastwood was to help you. And that's why I got into politics. I just really like helping people. I hate the politics of politics. Like it really ties me and drags me down. But what I love doing is receiving an email from someone or meeting the local small business chamber in Eastwood, hearing their issues and fixing them. And back in 2015, there was a big issue for the Korean community in Rose Street. We had the threat of the state government compulsorily acquiring land and building a car park that no one wanted in that town centre. The businesses came together, they contacted me at the time as mayor, and we were able to stop that proposal and build the brand new car park that you see there today, which is serving local businesses in Eastwood. I was just telling someone today, a lot of people who don't interact with Eastwood daily don't know how amazing it is, and they used to avoid the area because of the parking. And I remember going down there the other day. I had a coffee meeting with someone, and I said, as I was driving in, I'm like, oh no, I haven't left enough time to park. Where am I going to park? And I was stressing out, and then I forgot that the new car park was open. And I literally drove in, got a car park straight away, and it made a world of difference. That will help businesses in Eastwood, and we were able to deliver that because of the small business experience I've had. I understand the sacrifices you all make on a daily basis. I understand how stressful it is to run a business when something as simple as parking is an issue. And we're able to fix that diligently, efficiently, under budget, I've got to say, so financially responsible. But there are a few delays because of COVID, so it wasn't all perfect. But it's open now and it's wonderful. This is a strong connection that I made with the local Korean community then, and it will continue if I'm elected as your federal member. We speak about how wonderfully diverse our community is, and that's something that I consistently acknowledge when I meet people right around not only Sydney, but when I go across Australia. It's a wonderful place to live, and it's a place that's fantastic to grow up a family, to raise a family. I'd like to talk about, people have often said, you know, you'll get elected, what can you bring as the federal member here in Bennelong? For me, I'm more than just a local. I'm a local that's got a track record in delivering for our community. And listening and engaging with you all, delivering the infrastructure that you need. In my time as Mayor of Ryde, we upgraded parks and playgrounds. We supported small business during the pandemic. Cast your mind back to January 2020, before lockdowns, before the first outbreak, before social distancing, and importantly, before JobKeeper and before state government grants. Eastwood was struggling. It was a ghost town. And as a council, we helped Eastwood small businesses directly. To my knowledge, the only local government area in Australia that gave direct financial assistance and cash grants to small businesses. I did that because I listened to you and I knew how much Eastwood was hurting. It's not like other areas was suffering the same way. Other areas didn't have the experience that we had here in Eastwood. And then as the pandemic grew, we had the first aged care outbreak at Dorothy Henderson Lodge. Then we had the lockdowns, then our whole city was in trouble. We were able to have a quick and efficient response to help business here. I was able to do that because I listened, and I was able to do that because I work hard. That work ethic that I've got, which I got from my father, I don't know if any of you have met him, but he's my biggest volunteer, gets up at really early in the morning and goes through really late at night supporting me in my career. But I've got that work ethic from him, and it's something that I bring to Canberra. I know this community inside out. I've had the pleasure of serving you for 9 years on council, 5 years as mayor, and there are 4 main issues that I'm hearing when I'm out talking to all members of the community. You know, from the Chinese community to the Korean community, to the Armenian community and the growing subcontinent community. Cost of living is a major problem. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Inflation 5.1%. Businesses are having troubles keeping their costs down. And of course we can't just put our prices up straight away. There is a real economic time bomb that we're sitting on here that has happened under the watch of the Morrison government. We need some policies that will help families make ends meet. One of those things that Labor's putting up at this election is cheaper childcare for families. 4 out of 5 families in Bennelong will benefit from it. 10,000 families will get cheaper childcare under Labor, increasing the subsidy to 90%, extending its eligibility to before and after school care. As a dad of 3 kids, I know it'll benefit me and my family budget, and it will benefit families right across Bennelong. I mentioned before aged care and how we had the first outbreak here in Bennelong. Our aged care system is broken. My father's 70 years old. I'm petrified if I have to put him in aged care. I'm glad he's not here because I don't think he'd like me to say that. Obviously I respect him and we'll look after him. But there are families out there who are petrified to put their parents into aged care. We've had a Royal Commission into aged care and we haven't seen any of those recommendations delivered, or not enough of them at least. Labor has a plan to fix it. Put a 24/7 nurse in nursing homes. Who would have thought to put a nurse in a nursing home? We'll restore that. We're going to pay workers more so that when there is a crisis in staff, that there will be enough staff in the system to look after our parents. We're going to make food better. It's as simple as this, that the food that our elderly receive at aged care homes is just not good enough. We need to care for our elderly and respect them. And to do that, we need to elect a Labor government to fix aged care. I want to talk about the Anti-Corruption Commission. Over the last 10 years, we've seen this government waste money. We've seen this government have scandal after scandal after scandal. And the federal government is the only level of government that does not have an anti-corruption commission. Scott Morrison promised one in 2018, and he's failed to deliver one. A Labor government will restore faith in politics by legislating to have an anti-corruption commission by Christmas. It'll be set up next year. And it will have retrospective powers so that it can look back at the wrongs that have happened under this government. We know, unfortunately we know that there will be corruption at the federal level. We need an anti-corruption commission to get rid of it because it affects us all. We must have faith in our institutions and Parliament. The last thing I want to talk about before I go is climate change. I was just talking to a business owner here tonight. He has a factory on the Parramatta River. Every few years his business floods. And that is because of the extreme weather events that we're experiencing, because we have a government that is not taking enough action on climate change. We're living through extraordinary times when it comes to climate, and we need a government that will cut emissions, that will take climate change seriously, and that will invest in renewable technologies. A lot of solar panels are made in Korea. Why can't we make them here? And why can't we use that know-how that our Korean Australians have to invest in solar panels, invest in this amazing technology, reduce our emissions, and reduce the cost of electricity? It's a no-brainer, but we've got a government that just does not believe in the science and isn't acting quickly enough to stop this crisis that we're going through. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll wrap up by saying I'm more than just a local. I've been living here for 15 years, and I've been working hard for you in public life for 9 years, and I've had the pleasure of serving as your mayor here in the City of Ryde for 5 years. If elected as your federal MP for Canberra, I'll bring that same energy, that same drive, and that experience in public life to deliver for you and your families. A Labor government will look to the future and transform our nation. It's time for a change. I hope to have your support. Thank you.
In the speaking order, I just made a big mistake because I was supposed to call
아주 불타는 금요일임에도 불구하고 정말 많은 분들이 오셔가지고 정말 깜짝 놀랐습니다. 정말 진심으로 정말 감사드리고요. 많은 분들이 좀 더 저희가 이번 카운슬 일렉션 통해서 많이 관심 가져주셔서 저도 열심히 하려고 하고 있으니까 항상 많은 지속적인 관심과 응원 부탁드리고요. 제가 한국말이 되게 잘하는데 저도 영어로 부탁을 받아가지고 제가 영어로 스피치를 준비했으니까 잘 경청해 주시면 감사드리겠습니다. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Song. I'm the Labour Council for City of Ryde. I just talk straight to the point. Last 4 months as a councillor has been very exciting and busy, meeting with people in a variety of fields. And one thing I learned from that is to be a good politician, you must be able to enjoy what you do, because it may look like a fancy job to others, but believe me, there are so much work to do, dealing with a lot of people, then commitment, which can be quite stressful sometimes. And you also have to be a good listener, like Jerome, and find out what people really want. And most importantly, you must take action to deliver the best outcomes for the community. And especially if you're representing the community at a higher level, like this forthcoming federal election, you will definitely need someone with a solid experience in politics. And of course, if you're handsome and tall like Jerome, that's a bonus. So it's a joke, meant for a joke. But I'm very confident that Jerome has all of these. The fact that he enjoys what he does. And if you know him or have met Jerome before, you would totally agree his positive energy and positive mind with the combination of 9 years of experience in serving our community as a mayor and a councillor. This is the main reason I stand up and endorse him tonight. Not just because we are the same political party, but seriously, judging him as an individual based on what I've witnessed, his proven experience, working due diligent, and genuinely seriously caring about our community, and most importantly, he delivers his promises. One good example is a car park. I have to mention again, which you covered already, but you know we have a beautiful car park where the roastery is, which is a Korean site, as we know. We're going back to 80 years ago, roughly. Our community desperately needed a car park for locals who were visiting the local businesses on roasteries, and so we approached him and asked him to build a car park. And he was the first one, and likely the only one who paid attention and listened to our Korean community. And he's done it. The state of the car park in the town centre, providing 146 spaces. Some people might ask you, it took a little long, But I guess many people in our community doesn't really know the full story behind how it was built. The car park wasn't obviously a cheap project to deliver. It costed about $7.3 million to build. And there was a period that was a tempting offer by the state government to build a car park. But he rejected it because it was a commuter car park that they forced to build, not a short-term car park that we needed. And the state government then forced to build a commuter car park, on an eastern oval. Then we rejected it again, just simply because it was not what we asked for. If he compromised and accepted the state government's offer, well, his journey would be a lot easier, and he chose the hard way to deliver what our community really needed. If he had chosen the easy way, ignoring what the community asked for, we'd still be struggling, wasting our time looking for parking, which would also negatively impact our local businesses. Or maybe you wouldn't be able to see our children playing on the Eastern Oval now. This simply shows his character as a politician. Jerome is real, he's real, believe me. His proven integrity, his experience, his loyalty to our community. Eastern Oval isn't just there because it's always has been there. There are people who are standing up like Jerome and fighting for the community. And that's the leader who we need for our community. And I guess that's the leader we will all expect at this coming federal election. And I can't wait for Jerome to continuously serve our community in that next level. Thank you very much.
안녕하세요. Wonderful to be here with so many friends tonight, looking across the room. Chairman Shah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us all today to be here with you and to look across the room and to see so many friends. I look through the front rows and I see people like Vanessa Kim and of course Steve Yang and Esther Kim as well giving me a wave there. And of course the illustrious former presidents of the Korean Society, William Sung and Luke Song I saw here as well. Somewhere, I can't see where Luke is now. But so great to be here amongst friends. And Councillor Purcell was talking as well before about his association with the Korean community. Mine comes back to about 2000 when I was on the Parish Council of St Andrew's Anglican Church in Strathfield. And we made a very important decision for that church at that time, which was to allow what was then the Korean Bible study group on campus, Korean campus Bible study group, to come into the church. And effectively, that rejuvenated the church, and it brought people from all over Sydney, from Campsie, from the eastern suburbs, from Lidcombe, from Parramatta, from Epping, and of course I know the former member for Epping, and I should say my leader in the upper house as well, the Honourable Damien Tudorhope, a great friend of the Korean community here tonight as well. And the Korean community has done this in every single community throughout New South Wales where it's touched. The Honourable Victor Dominello was talking before about the entrepreneurial nature of the Korean community. The Korean community is a community that keeps on giving back. It's not just entrepreneurial, of course it's that as well, but it's very community minded, it's very charitable, and you all live that here today. Yesterday I was with the Consul General and we were talking about his vision for the Korean community in New South Wales and about seeing young people active and engaged in politics. Of course, we see that with so many people here today, the youth of the Korean community being actively engaged in politics, and of course with two of your councillors, young Korean community leaders on Ryde Council, you see the path forward as well. Now I'm here today to talk about my good friend Fiona Martin and about her great work as the member for Reid and why you should be supporting her in the next election. Like me, Fiona grew up in the inner west. She was a Santa Sabina girl at a Rosebank College as well. I can't forget Rosebank College. She actually beat a Rosebank College boy last time round as well, which is always something to remember. But Fiona is somebody who lives and breathes the community and somebody who, like many in this room, shares your understanding of small business. Somebody who has been a very successful small business person as well as being a doctor and actually starting a very successful small business. So she knows the struggles that small businesses go through and she's certainly taken that to Canberra. Fiona also is somebody who has spent her time in Parliament seeking to understand the community. I've seen that firsthand through the COVID pandemic. Fiona assembled all of the community groups together, and I was a part of that as well, all of the local councils, to try to get their insights in how to actually deal with some of the local issues when it came to some of the restrictions in place, how we recovered from COVID. And as you've already heard, I know that Daniel touched upon it, and I know, of course, that Simon was instrumental in advising upon this to the federal government as well. But Australia stands very proudly when it comes to our recovery from the COVID pandemic. When you look at our record in terms of loss of life and mortality in this country, when you look at the success of our employment in this country, you see how successful we have been in navigating the pandemic. And Fiona, as the local member for Reid, did this at the local level, bringing together all the voices from the community to be able to feed that back into Canberra in navigating our way through, bringing together state and local government as well as the federal government. And that's the kind of representative you've got in Fiona, somebody who, irregardless of political stripes, was bringing all the voices together to navigate what was, of course, a once-in-a-100-year event that none of us have lived through. But when it comes to the Korean community, you have an excellent friend in Fiona as well. Somebody who moved the motion recognising the 60th anniversary of Australia-Korea diplomatic relations in Canberra. Somebody who has always been an advocate for the Korean community, and someone who I'm no doubt will be able to tell you tonight has sung karaoke with half of this room already. And will do so again, quite happily, maybe even at the end of the night. And I'll be joining her doing it too. So in saying that, not just for her values, not just her values of hard work, enterprise, family values, things that the Korean community shares, things that the Liberal Party espouses, but for her understanding of the Korean community, for her great work with the local community, Fiona is an excellent representative for Reid and certainly deserves your vote for the next election. So, just in saying those words, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for your support of the political process, no matter which side of the aisle you're on. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Scott, for the lovely introduction. He's right. I see so many familiar faces in the audience here this evening, and I am sure I have sung karaoke with many of you. President Chow, thank you very much for organising this evening. It's a great honour to be here, to be with you once again. 안녕하세요. Do I say it? Reid is a great place to live and work and raise a family, and it's the gateway to Western Sydney. It is also proudly diverse, and diversity in Reid is our strength. When it comes to multiculturalism, Reid is the jewel in the crown. Reid is multiculturalism, and we have a vibrant Korean community in Reid, one of the biggest Korean communities in Australia, and that helps give our local community a very unique identity. I am very proud to represent Australia's largest Korean community in Reid. The Korean Australian story is a story of strength, it's a story of enterprise, and it's a story of determination. It is a deep story based on a long friendship between two countries. A friendship underpinned by shared values, as my colleagues have pointed out. Free trade, democracy, and a commitment to open, inclusive, and a prosperous region. And I had the honour to represent our Prime Minister in farewelling His Excellency Mr. Moon Jae-in, the President of the Republic of Korea, and Her Excellency Mrs. Kim Jong-suk, the First Lady of the Republic of Korea, on their first visit to Australia, and that was my great honour. As a fourth largest trading partner, Korea has contributed to our economic growth, just as Australia has contributed to Korea's. We are also important strategic partners, helping to ensure peace, helping to ensure stability, and in our region to ensure security for Australia, for our national defence industries. This is very important. Now, as it was pointed out earlier, nearly a century ago, my grandfather, Mark Barbutis, came to Australia from a little island in Greece. He came to Australia for a better life. He did not speak any English when he arrived in Australia, but he spoke the language of Australians. The language about putting in hard work, looking out for your friends and family, and leaving the country better than when you arrived. My grandfather's journey was sometimes very difficult, but he never lost sight of what this country meant to him and how much he loved Australia. My grandfather also ran a small business. He led his community too as a local councillor. Back then it was called an alderman, but he was a local councillor. And he also trained with the Royal Australian Air Force. He still inspires me today. A strong person, a leader, who contributed to our country and ran a successful small business. My grandfather, like Koreans, understood that for one to be successful and prosperous in their homes, starting a business is a great way to achieve that. And as Simon Kennedy pointed out, more than 32% of Korean Australians are entrepreneurs, which is double the national average. Well done! Following in my grandfather's footsteps, and as a Liberal who believes in hard work and enterprise, it was natural that I went into business myself. Before politics, I was a psychologist for 20 years, helping young people and families, not just with mental health issues, but also everyday problems that people encounter. It was a great honour to help people in my clinics, and it is now a great honour to serve and help the people of Reid. For 13 of those years, I ran a small business, and I understand what it takes to run a small business, that it stops with you the responsibility, that you have to put in the hard work and hours to manage that business. It is hard work, and I understand that. Also, as a mother of 4 children, and I tell you, my eldest daughter is now 16 and has her L plates. Makes me very nervous. I also understand what it is to be a working parent, a hard-working parent, as many of you are. I am proud that over the past 3 years, we have delivered in Reid infrastructure projects, supported small businesses and secured safety in our community. Almost 10,000 businesses in Reid were supported by JobKeeper, which helped over 33,000 workers through the pandemic. We have provided record funding for local roads through community infrastructure funding, like the M4, M5 tunnels and the Rozelle interchange, as part of the $1.5 billion West Connects project. I want to continue to make our community in Reid even greater. The people of Reid have told me that the cost of raising a family and running a business are the major priorities for them, and that those policies that help them make this easier are needed. My local plan for a stronger future is about supporting local and small and family businesses through tax relief and reducing the red tape for businesses. Our plan supports families too, with cost of living relief and income tax cuts, helping reduce power bills, making childcare more affordable than ever. I have been committed to ensuring that residents keep more of what they earn and get more time with their loved ones. The Liberal government backed small business with the lowest tax rates in 50 years, record investment in initiatives. Around 82,600 taxpayers in Reid will benefit from our tax relief plan. That's a lot of people. Business tax incentives will continue to allow around 31,000 businesses in Reid to write off the full value of any eligible asset that they purchase. But we have gone even further than that, rewarding small businesses that invest in skills and new technology. For every $100 a small business spends in training their employees, they will get $120 tax deduction. And that will help them become more productive, grow and be more competitive. Every $100 these small businesses spend on digital technologies, they will see $120 tax deduction. Residents will always pay lower taxes under a Liberal government. The Liberal government will also provide more than $180 billion in educational funding over the next 4 years. We have delivered record funding for schools and preschools. And under the Liberal government, funding for public schools in Reid continues to increase as part of the Quality Schools package, increasing by over 32% by 2029. The Liberal government is committed a further $468.3 million for the aged care sector too, delivering more home care places, more funding for aged care centres and increasing the amount of time that nurses and carers spend with residents. My local plan is also about investing in local green spaces and parks and sporting amenities. It is about building better roads so families get home sooner and safer. And that's why I'm fighting for better public amenities for families and working with local councils to upgrade parks like Burwood Park, Cabarita Park. I've invested in Strathfield Park, Hudson Park. This is what matters to the people of Reid. I'm making sure that the Homebush DFO roundabout on Homebush Bay Drive is finally fixed. We have committed $50 million as part of a $100 million project to getting this road fixed. In 2019, I stood for Parliament to ensure a strong economy, to ensure more jobs, to ensure lower taxes and greater opportunities for working families. Australians have a choice. They have a choice between a government that's delivered a strong economy and a stronger future, or, sadly, an opposition leader who didn't know the unemployment rate or the cash rate. That would weaken our economy. That would certainly weaken our economy. And we are in a position right now where we need to build a stronger economy. I will continue to fight every day for our community in Reid to ensure that the promise of Australia made by generations of migrants, just like my grandfather, from far and wide, including Korea, is kept long into the future. I believe that Reid community truly reflects the best of Australia, multicultural Australia. The past few years have been extremely challenging and I know that people are still struggling. I know that. But we are strong together and we will build an even stronger community and stronger future together. Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to doing more karaoke with you soon.
Well, thank you very, very much, President Chart. This is a fantastic event, so well attended, and says so much about the strength and commitment of the Korean community and the important role that business leaders are playing in the Korean community. And I have to say, during what is going to be still only at the halfway mark, a hard-fought election with 3 weeks to go, it is a wonderful thing for the Korean community that an event like this is organised so that the Korean community has this way of engaging with the political parties and with candidates in seats where there are so many Korean Australians. So thank you very much. I bring greetings from the leader of the Labor Party, Anthony Albanese, who I've been working very hard, along with my colleagues here, to make the next Prime Minister of Australia. My job this evening is to do two things, I think. One is to make some reflections on where we are at this juncture in time, what the key issues are, and also to introduce my friend Sally Situ, who is Labor's candidate for the federal seat of Reid. I won't say any more about Jerome. He's had a pretty good go. He's well known to many of you in his role as Mayor of Ryde, and he played a critical role in cleaning that council up, getting it functional, making it work. I've listened carefully to the contributions this evening, and I suppose I want to make one reflection. I think a number of the speakers have talked about Korean values and then sought to say that those values are the same as the values of their political party. I think the Korean community is very fortunate with Councillor Han and Councillor Song, councillors from both political parties represented on Ryde Council. No political party has a monopoly on Australian values, and no political party has a monopoly on Korean community values. The importance of family, hard work, entrepreneurship, initiative, individual effort. These things are all Korean values. They are all Australian values, and they're values that are shared by the major political parties in this country. But I tell you one thing that also matters. Good government matters. Good government really matters. And this has been a very bad government indeed over the course of the last 3 years. And Australia can't afford, as this government, a tired government, reaches the end of its first decade in office and is asking Australians for another decade at a period where we've got a government that's taxed more, spent more, borrowed more. We have $1 trillion in national debt and very little to show for it. Rising cost of living, heading north of 5%. Interest rate rises coming around the corner. Very difficult challenges for the economy that are challenges that predate the COVID pandemic. Historic low wages growth and low productivity growth that matter for the kinds of businesses that you work in have been a feature of this economy now for a record-breaking period of time. The economy matters, and the government's role in the economy is what makes the difference. The rebirth of the Korean economy after the Second World War featured all of those things. Entrepreneurship. It featured business development. It featured individual effort. But it also featured government that was committed to bring Koreans together, to work together in a national effort and in the national interest. And that's the kind of spirit that we need to bring to Australia today. Not the politics of division, but the politics that bring everybody together in a national effort to get on top of the big challenges. Lifting wages, getting economic performance right, lowering electricity prices, dealing with the challenge of climate change, building a proper, effective society in the region in which we live. And there's nobody that I know who epitomises those values, those commitments and those policies than Sally Situ. She's a terrific candidate for Reid. She's had a series of careers that she's brought together, both as a senior official at the University of Sydney, Australia's finest university. I say it's our finest university because I went there for a few years. I'm not sure I really troubled the scorers. I'm not sure I really did quite as well as Sally or some of my other colleagues and candidates here. I did okay. Sally did very well. Sally, as a leader at that university, has played a critical role in both the university and the business school at Sydney University. She's a leading researcher, in particular around issues around work and the finance industry. Her family came to Australia, her parents fleeing the communist dictatorship in Laos. And like many of the families who come here today, Sally, who may speak about this herself a bit, of course, her parents worked so hard. They sacrificed everything to put Sally in the position that she's in today, and Sally herself has worked so hard. My experience with the Korean community in Australia was much more in Western Sydney, in the suburb of Campsie, where I brought up my two then very little kids, now very big kids. And I learned to love the Korean community, I learned to love Korean food. I spent maybe too many late nights where perhaps Fiona is a karaoke enthusiast. Me, not so much. I'm always at the back. When the call is to come up the front, I'm always at the back. But late nights in Korean restaurants is one of the things that showed me the diversity and strength of the Korean community. Business leaders, workers in the construction industry, mums and dads bringing up their families in that important part of Sydney. And I know that in the seat of Reid, where the Korean community is so strong, they deserve a representative, they need a representative, and they'll do very well electing Sally Situ as the member for Reid.
Finally, Mrs. Sally Situ.
안녕하세요. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for organising this incredible event, and to all the volunteers as part of this organisation. It's incredible to be here with you today. So when I put my hand up to run as the candidate of Reid, one of the most marginal seats in New South Wales, I knew how hard it was going to be. I knew it was going to be early morning, long days, late nights. But I did that because I believe we are coming up to the most significant election that we have had in a decade. So there is a clear choice at this election. It's a choice between Scott Morrison, who went missing during times of crisis, during the bushfires, the vaccine rollout, and more recently the floods. He was not here, too slow, or not interested. But the problem with the Morrison government runs deeper than that, because they have no plan for the future, no ideas for how to make Australia a better place for everyone. When my parents migrated here more than 45 years ago, they came here with very little English, but they found good jobs and they worked hard. They saved up to buy a modest house just 5 years after arriving into this country, and they still live in that place today. They worked hard to give my brother and I the educational and work opportunities that they never got. And in fact, I remember when I graduated, my mum came with me and she put on the graduation gown because she said to me that she would never have the opportunity to graduate from university. So this was her one moment to be able to take a photo in a graduation gown. But I knew that that achievement was as much hers as it was mine. My parents worked hard, they made sacrifices, and I was able to benefit from that. But my story isn't unique. It is one shared by so many of you in this room, because you, your parents or your grandparents came to this country. You left your homeland, you came to a foreign place, and you had to make sacrifices. But you did that because you believed in a bigger vision for your family. And that's why I'm running to be the Labor candidate for Reid, because I share your vision. I believe that we can have a better future for our country. And as I reflect on my family's story, a story shared by everyone in this room tonight, I know it is possible because of the Labor Party. Medicare, superannuation, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, paid parental leave, a strong education system, and a world-class universities. These are all big Labor Party policies that have made our lives better. But as I reflect on my family's story, I wonder if it would have been possible if they had arrived in this country now, 45 years later. I can't help but think, as hard as they worked, how much harder it is for people today. It's harder to find a secure job with decent pay. It's harder for small businesses to stay afloat. Harder for ordinary Australians to keep their head above water. It's harder to pay the rent, let alone save for a home. The Australian dream is being pushed beyond the reach of working people. And that's no accident, it's not bad luck, it's not because people don't work hard. It's because of the policies and choices of this government. We are being let down by Scott Morrison, who is failing us, failing to grasp the opportunities that education and innovation can give us, failing to build secure jobs and career paths, failing to address climate change and plan for the jobs that come from an economy powered by cheap renewable energy, failing to plan for the future. That's why I'm standing for Reid, because the policies and decisions and values of governments matter. They change lives. And if you want to change things for the better in this country, we need to start by changing the government. Because the promise of a country can only be realised when you have political leaders who act with courage and compassion. Instead, we have Scott Morrison, who goes missing during times of crisis, fails to take responsibility, fails to lead. So the Liberal Party will talk about their economic management credentials, but it's a myth. Let's look at their record. Compared to the last Labor government, the current government has taxed more, borrowed more, and spent more, but they've delivered less. This week we found out inflation is now the highest it has been since the introduction of the GST more than 20 years ago. But we didn't need to wait for those figures to come out to know that everything is getting expensive. We feel it at the petrol bowsers, we feel it at the grocery checkout, and we feel it when we're paying our childcare fees. We know that everything is getting more expensive. And next week, we are likely to see interest rate increase. And this is all under the watch of the Morrison government. They have overseen a period of waste and mismanagement. And let me just give you one example of how bad things have gotten under this government. A signature Labor Party policy is to improve our aged care sector. It was in crisis long before the pandemic came along, but now it is collapsing under the weight of the Omicron wave. Our plan to lift wages for aged care workers and improve conditions in our aged care homes will cost about $2.3 billion, a significant investment. But that is half the amount the Morrison government has wasted on a submarine deal with the French, submarines that we will never see. So let's compare that. We will invest $2.3 billion into the aged care sector to look after our elderly. The Morrison government will waste double that amount, $5 billion on a failed deal for submarines. So don't let them tell you that they are better at managing the economy, because that's the difference. We have a plan for the future, they do not. We have a plan to strengthen Medicare, make it easier to see a doctor. We want to make childcare more affordable, because good childcare is good for kids, it's good for parents, and it's good for our society. And we will finally address climate change after a decade of inaction, with a plan that will deliver new jobs, make your electricity bills cheaper, and reduce our emissions. We will help with skill shortages by making TAFE free for those studying in areas where there are skill shortages. And we will strengthen our universities by making more places available in priority areas. I worked at the University of Sydney for almost 10 years. I saw firsthand how investment in education changes lives. This announcement will make a difference. It's an example of the best thing about Anthony Albanese. He comes to this job wanting to build people up. He is ambitious for Australia. He wants us all to be the best that we can be. He will be a Prime Minister with integrity, leading a talented and committed government that represents modern Australia. And I'm proud to be part of that team. Reid is one of the most multicultural seats in the country, taking in suburbs like Burwood, Rhodes, Strathfield, Homebush, Newington, Wentworth Point. I live in the electorate. My son plays soccer in the local team. He goes to the local school. I'm on the PNC. We love our community. And I want to make sure that the people of Reid have a better future, because I think it's important that they have someone who reflects the community, represent the community. And I just wanted to single out someone here tonight who I think represents the very best of our future. That's Philip Kim, a great young Korean Australian, and he is an integral part of my campaign. I hope that everyone in the room here tonight comes and speaks with Philip, because he's going to be a future emerging leader, and I'm incredibly proud to have him as part of my team. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the presenters. It's very interesting to see this the conversation. Now, just before for the next session, I'd like to introduce Damien, the Honorable Damien Tudufo. So he's the member for the Legislative Council, the Minister of the Finance, Minister of the Employee Relations, Vice President for the Executive Council, Leader of the Government in the Legislative Council. He came here to the behalf of the Mr. Dominion. He's just keen to get ready to have a just take the some questions from us. So this event is an excellent opportunity for our guest speakers to inform and inspire our community. We also hope this event is an opportunity for the candidates to listen to and understand Korean community better. Now, Mr. Steve Choi, the Vice President of the Mil집지역에 Association, will facilitate the Q&A session with all the presenters. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any question, please follow the Mil집지역 website link or the QR code in the front to send your text. The questions can be either in Korean or in English. Thank you.
I don't think we are running a little bit late tonight, right? I think some of you have to leave very, very soon. I understand that. So finally, I'll give an opportunity for candidates to give their 1 minute final words instead of asking you questions. So what we are going to do after the election, maybe 2 of you at least will be federal member. Anyway, I don't know. Yes, also, maybe, I don't know. But I give you 1 minute each to wrap up your speech and then we conclude with our Q&A. But we are going to invite elected MPs after the election, maybe at the same place, to listen to what they may have to say for the Korean community. Because I have received a few questions, but I can't really, ask them questions and get the answers from you. I don't think it's very fair if we do that. So from Fiona, from One Labour, Jerome, can you give a 1 minute final speech before the election? Because you're not going to see any.
Look, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I think everyone's just been blown away by your engagement. Before I wrap up, I'd also like to pay tribute to the outgoing Bennelong MP, John Alexander. He was very hardworking, he was local, he was from the other side of politics, but he was progressive. He represented Bennelong very well for his 10 years as a local member. He was also like exactly the same height as me, right? So if you want a replacement, on height. But no, I've proven over the last 9 years that I'm not only a local that cares about this community, I'm a local that works very hard for this community. Bennelong deserves a local member that's got a track record and that is able to represent our incredibly diverse community. You've seen me do it as mayor, you've seen me do it as a councillor. I ask you to give me the opportunity to do it as your federal MP. Thank you.
Yeah, look, no, thank you very much. Great night. Look, John Alexander's been great. I remind you, he has said Bennelong can do no better than Simon Kennedy. It's coming to your letterbox soon, and you can watch it on my Facebook. But look, this is for Federal Parliament of Australia. Congratulate everybody here tonight, all the candidates for speaking well. Congratulate Jerome on his achievements on local council. But this is about running the national economy and the Parliament of Australia. We did hear some discussion from Labor about the past. I ask you this, which country would you have wanted to live in the last 3 years? I think Korea and Australia are at the top of that list. They might pick at little bits, selective facts, which are not quite true, to try and paint a poor picture. But you think which country had more lives saved than Australia and Korea? You think which country looked after its people with policies like JobKeeper, spent because it needed to be spent, to save your businesses, to save your livelihoods. That is what the Liberal government will deliver. We'll deliver it because it's right, not because it's fashionable, not because we're trying to read which way the wind's blowing, because we have values and we stick to them. You know what you will get if you elect us. You absolutely know what you get. And we're not running this election campaign on somebody's personality or litigating it on the past. We're running it on a positive vision for the future, for you, to deliver. So you have a clear choice, a very, very clear choice. Do you want someone who's actually trying to read which way the wind is going to blow with cash, with writing checks they cannot cash? How many aged nurses? Don't know. What is that going to cost? Don't know. Or you have someone who is going to deliver what you need and what you want. Thank you.
Reverse order of the speech, so probably you are the third one.
I feel like I've already given you a strong pitch for why you should vote for me and Reid. So I want to use this minute to really invite you to be part of the political process. So I put my hand up to run, knowing how hard it was going to be because of the values that I have and the things that I believe in. But second to that is because I believe that our Parliament ought to be representative of our community. So that someone of my background, of migrant parents, I can imagine standing and being in our federal Parliament. And so when I singled out Philip, I did that because he's the future of your community. You ought to back him. And I hope that there are other young people in this room who see a place for them in our federal Parliament, because we need you, and I hope that the community here really backs you to do that, because our federal Parliament will be better for it, whichever side of politics you go into, but certainly I hope you come into the Labor Party, and Philip can definitely tell you about how great it is. But this place, and I think about when I had to go home to get my paperwork in order to become the candidate. My mother had her citizenship paper She had it laminated and framed because that was how important an Australian citizenship was to her. Because to her it means that you belong here, you have rights and responsibilities, and this country welcomes you. And I hope that you feel that too, and I hope that you take part in the political process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been a great honour to be here this evening to hear both sides. I agree with Sally, multicultural Reid is, we really are very privileged in Reid, and you know, having both of us have migrant backgrounds, so and that's important in Reid because we are so diverse, and that's what it's about. But I'm here because I wanted to talk about Australia and Korea, and I think that relationship, which is a long-standing friendship, a very important friendship, not just for each individual country, but for the security of our region. That is why that relationship is very important. So we must not forget that Australia and Korea are long-standing friends. Our national security is a big priority for Australia and a big priority for Korea. Now, I also want to point out that we cannot provide quality Medicare, adding more medicines on the PBS, funding for schools, funding for sporting amenities, funding for WestConnex, M4, M5 interchange, you know, whatever it is that I've delivered on in Reid over the last 3 years. You cannot do that without good economic management and a strong economy. And that is why it is so important that the Morrison government is re-elected to ensure that our country maintains a strong economy, which will provide a stronger future for each and every one of you in this room. Thank you.
Finally, you all heard that elected MP will come back here again to talk to the Korean community again, right? Yes. So probably, unless I won't let you go. Anyway, thank you very much for staying here very late. We have a second part of the session. So what we are going to do is a final photo time here with a candidate. It will take more than 1 minute anyway, with the calling members. And then after 5-minute break, we are going to second session with our Korean councillors. But if you don't want to, I don't know, it's up to you, because it's already too late. I can't force you to stay here, all right? So let's have a photo first, and the calling members to come forward, make a group photo. It's only one group photo, so please stand here.
있는데 3세까지 그 있는데 정치에도 좀 참여를 많이 해주셨으면 하는 바람입니다. 그러니까 참여가 여러 종류로 참여를 할 수 있는데요. 뭐 이런 식으로 이런 이벤트들이 만약에 있다 하면 그냥 한번 와보시는 것도 괜찮고요. 또 당을 떠나서 어떤 당이든 본인이 마음에 드는 당에 젊어서 잘 모르실 수도 있고 그냥 색깔 좋은 당에 뭐 가입을 하세요. 영 리브럴 아니면 영 레이버. 저도 사실 그런 생각을 안 하고 아무도 그런 거 권유를 안 해줬기 때문에 많이 못했던 것 같고요. 저희 대신 저희 2세들이 교회에서 열심히 일 많이 해요. 성당에서도 일 많이 하고. 예. 그것도 약간 다 봉사거든요. 봉사고 그룹으로 모여서 사실 젊은이들끼리 모여가지고 뭐 일하면서 또 뭐 친구도 만들고 연애도 하고 그런 거겠죠. 영라이브도 마찬가지인 것 같아요. 그렇게 섞여서 있으면서 또 폴리티션들하고도 또 좋은 관계들을 하고 보고 배우고 하는 것들이 있더라고요. 그래서 그런 친구들은 많이 준비가 돼 있고 한데 저희 한인 커뮤니티도 사실 많은 사람들이, 많은 2세들이 조금씩 참여를 여기저기서 각자의 할 수 있는 참여, 지역에서의 참여, 각 방에서의 참여들이 있어야지 나중에 정말 또 스테이트 아니면은 연방에도 리프레젠트 할 수 있는 그런 한인들이 생길 것 같습니다. 지금 사실 뭐 스퀴드 게임, 또 뭐 BTS 이런 것들이 사실 그냥 어떻게 뒷발로 걸어가다가 어떻게 빵 터진 거 아니거든요. 그런 그 영화 또는 뭐 음악이 그렇게 세계적으로 터지려고 하면은 사실 그 밑에 잔잔하게 그라스루츠의 엄청난 뮤지션들과 엄청난 작은 영화 감독들부터 해서 모든 진짜 문화적으로 굉장히 많이 푸시가 돼 있고 많은 관심이 있었기 때문에 그렇게 도달하는 거지 그냥 헛짚어서 그게 된 게 아닙니다. 이루어진 게 아닙니다. 그렇기 때문에 정치적으로도 저희 커뮤니티가 정말 앞으로 성장을 더 하고 더 코리안 커뮤니티를 레프레젠트 할 수 있는 그런 사람이 나오려면 꼭 저희만이 아니고 많은 분들이 관심이 가져야지 그런 날이 올 수 있으리라 생각합니다. 그래서 저희는 그냥 먼저 그냥 좀 일단 한번 또 길을 밟아보고 저희가 여기서 또 느끼는 것들 다 후배들한테 많이 다 얘기해주고 연결시켜주고 하고 싶습니다. 그렇기 때문에 언제든지 뭐 페이스북으로 찾으면은 리치아웃 해주세요. 저는 너무 해피하게 저희 다 소통하고 같이 나누고 하고 싶습니다. 네, 여기까지입니다. 감사합니다.
한정태 의원님이 지금 뭐 제가 하고 싶은 말씀 저랑 같이 똑같이 십시일 본 것 같아요. 일단은 오늘 취지 자체가 콜린 비지니스맨에서 이제 젊으신 분들을 좀 더 많이 포커스를 해서 정치에 좀 관심을 좀 갖게 하고 참여를 하는 방향으로 하는 취지였고, 근데 더 서프라이징하게 지금 또 젊으시지만 어쨌든 좀 더 1세대 분들도 많이 오셔가지고 좀 많이 놀랐는데 뭐 정말 한정태 의원님께서 말씀을 하셨는데 제 개인적인 생각은 이렇습니다. 뭐 1세대 분들이 오셔가지고 정말 힘들게 자리 잡으신 거 맞고요. 영어가 안 되신 상황에서도 좋은 이미지를 많이 심어주셨거든요. 정말 한국인이다, 똑똑하다, 일 잘한다, 열심히 한다, 꾀안 부리고 이런 것들을 쌓아오셨지 정치적으로만 참여를 못했을 뿐이지 그 자체가 실질적으로 쌓아온 이미지들에 대해서는 정말 그냥 드리는 말씀은 아니고 정말 감사하게 생각하는 부분이에요. 예전에 솔직히 몰랐어요. 뭐 내가 잘났을 때겠지. 근데 그런 것들이 순서대로 밟아온 앞에 분들이 계셨기 때문에 자연스럽게 이미지가 연결이 된 것 같아요. 근데 그런 부분에서 좀 아쉬운 부분은 뭐냐, 항상 저희도 뭐 한정태 의원님하고 얘기를 하지만 그러면서도 불구하고 많은 분들이 정치적인 시도도 하셨고 또 어느 정도 위치에 계신 분들도 있습니다. 뭐 성원 회장님이나 단 회장님 계신데 살짝 아쉬운 점이 이제 일정원에서 건너오면서 약간의 갭이 좀 있어가지고 그 중간 젊으신 분들이 많이 좀 없었던 것 같아요. 다들 공감을 하실 거예요. 그래서 그런 부분에 있어서 많은 분들이 지적을 주셨어요. 뭔가 해야 되지 않겠냐, 젊은 사람들이. 네, 바쁘다, 뭐하다. 저도 대학 때부터 노동당 뼛속까지 농담이었는데 잠시 또 제 일을 하고 직장 취직하고 하다 보니까 그런 거에서 망각하게 되는데 어느 누구도 말씀을 안 해주시다가 주변에서 이제 어느 정도 이게 필요하다고 느끼신 분들이 얘기를 해주시더라고요. 그래서 우여곡절로 어떻게 제가 한인회를 또 들어가게 돼서 고은 변호사를 일하고 그러면서 또 정치에서 또 다시 예전에 생각했던 그런 것들을 펼쳐나가면서 또 정계분들도 만나면서 그렇지 필요한 거였구나 정말 직접 느꼈어요. 그러다 보니까 또 다시 다음 기 연결되고 그러다가 아주 대단한 건 아니지만 어쨌든 한 지역에서 이렇게 많은 관심 속에서 응원해 주신 덕분에 2명이 나와서 이 자리까지 왔는데 당부하고 싶은 말은 젊은 분들 많이 이쪽에 계시네요. 꼭 정치에 참여하는 방법은 여러 가지잖아요. 간접적으로 신문을 읽거나 호주뉴스에 대해서 파악하는 것 자체 정말 큰 힘이 됩니다. 거기서 좀 더 나가서 이게 우리 커뮤니티 연관될 수 있나? 뭐에 연관될 수 있나? 비즈니스에 연관될 수 있나? 이런 부분을 파악하시는 것도 정말 큰 지식이 되는 거고, 거기서 좀 더 나가시고 분들은 추가로 또 당연히 참석하시고, 말씀하신 대로 저희는 뭐 당색깔이 다르지만 실질적으로 많은 생각을 뭐 비슷하게 공유하는 사람들입니다. 예. 어차피 저희 한 길은 한국인, 저희 한국인이거든요. 솔직히 그 말은 대놓고는 말을 못하지만 다른 외국인들한테는 저희 정말 뼛속까지 한국인이에요. 그래서 그런 부분에서 저희가 됐음에도 불구하고 한영태 의원님이 뭐 되자마자 뭐 그 모션 무방 가지고 코리아타운 하는 거 이미 그런 부분에 있어서는 다 생각을 했었기 때문에 그게 다 이루어지는 거지. 젊은 분들이 좀 더 관심을 좀 더 가져서 거창하게 프라미스 원하지 않습니다. 뭔가가 정치에 좀 참여해서 그 부분을 한국 사회에 대해서 어쨌든 기승전 한국인이거든요. 아직 뭐 못 느끼시면 나이 꼭 느끼실 겁니다. 그 부분에서 좀
한 게 아니라 진짜 누구 이슈가 되는 어느 정치적인 이슈가 된 사람 딱 모셔놓고 그 다음에 정치에 대해서 이제 뭐 교육을 하는 거죠. 그런 거를 두 분이 오늘의 샘플을 보였으니까 어떻게 그걸 좀 하겠다 뭐 이런 좀 생각이 없으신지.
네, 감사합니다. 네, 잘 들어보시고 보여드리면 되나요? 네, 열심히 하겠습니다.
네, 열심히 하겠습니다. 저희 뭐 불러주신다면 어디든지 가고 또 저희가 아니고 이제 다른 정치인들 뭐 저희를 통해서 부르고 싶으시면은 열심히 불러가지고 오늘 참여를 하겠습니다. 오늘 같이.
네, 알겠습니다. 감사합니다.
모처럼 두 시원 계시니까 이스트도 저희도 오래 있었고 지금 주차 빌딩 완성돼서 정말 갈 때마다 편하고 정말 좋습니다. 한 가지 더 이제 얘기들이 이스트우드가 로스트리트 기찻길과 저 도로로 이스트 나눠져 있잖아요. 그래가지고 언젠가는 궁극적으로는 뭐 위로 고가도를 만들든지 아니면 한국식 좀 그 좋은 그런 지하도로 해가지고 그 이스트우드 국기봉 이렇게 그 이스트 저 건너편에 있는 거기서부터 이제 한 방에 한인타운까지 바로 올 수 있는 거로 하면은 굉장히 우리 한인타운에 많은 사람을 유치시킬 수 있는 그런 서로 좋은 거죠. 중국인 타운하고 호주 타운도 좋고 한인 타운에도 많은 사람들이 와서 지금 원래는 사실 좀 불편하거든요. 특히 요즘엔 공사를 해가지고 뭐 건너가려고 그러면 굉장히 불편한데 앞으로 이제 그 코리아 타운, 뭐 타운센터 같은 식으로 또 그 지하로 하는 것도 한번 그래서 그런 거를 이제 좀 개념을 카운슬러들한테 얘기를 하려면은 한국을 좀 구경을 알아야 되는데 너무 한국에 대해서 개념이 없어가지고 우리가 인터넷으로 보여주면서 설명하니까 그때서야 이제 얘기를 하는데 그건 지난번 시의원들한테 이제 뭐처럼 아시겠지만 설명을 했던 얘기입니다. 그래서 이제 새로운 시의원들이 나오셨으니까 한번 기회가 된다면은 작년에 종로도 왔고 올해는 한번 꼭 한국을 와서 보고 시의원들이 한국식의 발전한 모습을 좀 보면서 야, 이 지하도를 잘 발전시키면 엄청난 포텐셜이 있구나 하는 것도 좀 배워서 우리 이쪽도 좀 한번 이렇게 되면 이제 스트라스들도 할 수 있고 다 그렇잖아요. 그래서 알겠습니다. 한번 좋은 쪽으로 한번 생각해 보십시오. 네.
네, 그 이스트우드 그 오버파스랑 이런 것도 예전부터 아시겠지만은 나왔던 얘기고요. 이제 라이드 전체적인 지역에서 아마 이스트우드가 제일 이제 개발이 덜 되고 지금 좀 남아있는 숙제같이 돼 있습니다. 그래서 네, 보셨습니다. 네. 바뀌질 않았어요, 솔직히. 네. 네. 그렇기 때문에 이제 거기에 이제 마스터 플랜을 이제 짜는 지금 시기고요. 그러고 있는데 이제 제가 코리아타운 안건을 내면서 이렇게 시청에다가 자꾸 얘기를 하니까 아, 이거 그냥 어차피 앞으로 뭐 마스터 플랜 전체적으로 이스트 개발에 대해서 할 건데 거기에서 이거를 먼저 이렇게 진행하면 뭐 약간 없나거나 아니면 나중에 전체적인 마스터 플랜 하는데 약간 좀 치거나 이상하게 될 수 있지 않냐는 식으로 또 물어보더라고요. 그래서 제가 일단 그건 그거고 왜냐면 마스터 플랜 이렇게 하면 진짜 한 5년 10년 걸리거든요. 그래서 일단 그때는 그때고 지금 일단 코리아타운으로 어떻게 해서든 이렇게 발전을 시켜보고 마케팅 그런 식으로 해서 하고 이스트우드를 개발하면서 그때 뭐 코리아타운이 잘 정착이 돼 있으면 거기는
이스트우드 공청회 아니니까요, 우리? 이스트우드 동네 문제는 이스트우드 가서 말씀하세요. 이스트우드 안 사시는 분들 여기 질문이 하나가 더 있기 때문에 먼저 보고요.
네, 안녕하세요. 영어로 할게요. So evidently the people who have rocked up here are first gen and second generation Koreans are very disengaged with the political scene, as you know. And a big part, I think it's because we no longer really care about politics. It seems like it's a far issue and that our say doesn't have much, but there are, more than 1 million, Asian Australians. How are you actually going to engage with us? Because currently the orthodox kind of way of campaigning isn't working. We're just not really engaged. Do you have a plan to engage with us? If you go to Eastwood past a certain amount of time, we're all there, but none of us seem to really care. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
네, 좋은 말이었습니다.
답변을 한 걸로 하면 저 그러게요. 아까 지금 2세대 분들이 저희 1세대 분들이나 한인 사회에 대해서 저희 인게이지가 안 된 부분에 대해서 어떻게 발전을 하냐고 여쭤보신 것 같아요, 전체적으로. 당연히 저희가 그런 부분에 대한 취약점을 알고 많은 분들이 1세대 분이나 2세대 분이 조언을 해주셨기 때문에 오늘 이 자리가 어떻게 보면 스타팅 포인트라고 생각이 돼요. 아까 다른 분들 말씀하셨지만 앞으로 잘해라. 저희가 이 자리를 통해서 물론 연방 선거들이랑 후보도 있었지만 실질적인 그 뒤에는 많은 콜린맨 협회 여기 직원분들께서 취지 자체도 한국인이 이만큼 좀 위상이 좀 올라가는 만큼 이 기세를 몰아서 좀 더 관심을 갖게 하자 하는 취지가 정말 컸기 때문에 이 무순서를 이렇게 마련한 거였거든요. 그래서 이게 아마 말씀드린 대로 스타팅 포인트가 돼서 불씨가 돼가지고 많은 분들이 충분히 더 관심을 가질 수 있을 거라는 정말 확신은 듭니다. 그게 얼마만큼 저희가 여기서 계속 하면서 있으면 모르겠지만 저희는 최대한 저희 혹은 다음 분들을 빨리 발굴해내서 계속 전수해 나가서 정치를 하다 보니까 목소리 조금 그나마 힘을 얻게 되니까 알겠더라고요. 목소리가 얼마나 중요한지. 정말 누가 뒤에서 아무리 소리쳐도 어느 한 사람이 가서 사진 한번 찍어주고 목소리를 내면은 그나마 저희 레벨에서도 정말 큰데 많은 분들이 저희 정말 한국 커뮤니티에서 발전을 원하신다면은 반드시 참여하셔가지고 목소리를 한마디만 하시면 그게 얼마큼 힘이 되는지 느낄 수 있을 거예요. 정말 저희뿐만 아니라 젊으신 분들도 그만큼 노력을 하셔야 돼요. 같이. 제 생각은 그렇습니다. 짧게 마무리하겠습니다. 네.
이런 자리 더 마련하도록 하겠습니다. 시간이 많아서 이거 작은 거니까 괜찮을 겁니다.
계획들을 제가 지금 그쪽에 또 도와주고 있는 그걸 좀 우리 대신 많은 분들이